Good morning, everyone. It's a treat to see everyone who's in the house, and it's a treat to say hello to everyone who's online. Welcome to the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Sue Witter, and I'm one of the practitioners here, and it is my joy and honor to welcome you today. Jim Paulette is our practitioner today, who will be doing the invocation and reading. The announcements are floating by. The Bradfords, we are always happy to have the Bradfords. It just gives us a heart and soul connection that is really missed, regardless of how good other people who come are. So, welcome to the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. And at this point, I believe we just give it to you.
That's what we do. We're going to set the tone right now.
Within my heart, I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know.
I will make a quiet place within my life. I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place.
So if you will, just take a breath. Close your eyes and breathe with me. Breathe in that essence of spirit. And today I know I'm standing on sacred ground, and everyone in this room is standing here with me. I recognize the power and the presence of God. I feel that vibration of goodness coursing through me right now. I feel the joy and the peace and the love that is spirit. Knowing that I am one with God. That unity and harmonious right action is alive within me. I speak a word of blessing for Reverend Karen, knowing that God is speaking through her to us, touching our hearts, our creative mind, that wise self that lives within us. I speak a word of love and blessing for musicians, knowing that their beautiful music lifts us up. And so I know that everyone in this sanctuary is blessed beyond measure, feeling all of the love and the goodness that is available to all of us in the universe. And we accept and we receive that with a glad and beautiful open heart. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for this moment. I'm grateful to be here with you, and I'm grateful for this sanctuary that we call our spiritual home. So with all of that, I just release these words into that law, knowing it is manifested as we speak. Together we say, and so it is. Good morning. So I'm reading from this book, Falling Open in a World, Falling Apart by Amodama. And I'm going to read this chapter 4. Love called you all the way home. There is an intelligence at the core of life, an intelligence that drives the trajectory of our lives. If you would recognize it, it would bring you all the way home to love. The embodiment of awakening requires us to see how this inner division underlies many of our feelings, our decisions, and our actions. Nothing is too unspiritual to be included in our journey of awakening. Awakening doesn't take us off into another realm where we transcend the human experience. It doesn't magically make the human experience perfect. It doesn't mean that the trajectory of your life suddenly becomes to a full stop and you live in an enlightened stratosphere. It means that everything in your life that was previously in the shadows comes rushing in to be seen and healed and resolved in love, to be held in honesty and intimacy. And this means everything, including the darkest, most challenging, most painful feelings. Everything is the beloved in disguise. It is only that you separate the beloved into an image of perfection and then banishes anything that isn't aligned with that image. The beloved is everywhere and everything. Everything is the intelligence of love calling you all the way home.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. If your heart is in your dream, no request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, as dreamers do, fate is kind. She brings to those who love the sweet fulfillment of their secret longing. Like a bolt out of the blue, it comes in and sees you through. When you wish upon morning star, your dreams come true.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Oh my goodness. Okay, so you got me on. Let me just try. Oh, there we are. Oh, good thing I didn't turn it off. That would have been really hard to turn it back on without my. Good morning. Good morning. Bradford's, I have to tell you, that's such a personally touching song. My father-in-law, my husband grew up in a musical family. I did not. And both of my in-laws were exquisite singers, champion winners in quartets and Sweet Adelines. My mother-in-law traveled around the world and won awards. And my father-in-law sang that song at 3 of our 4 children's weddings. So that one really got me. You were practicing earlier, and I was verklempt. So good morning. How wonderful it is to see you here. I'm so happy to be here myself. And good morning, everybody online. Welcome to the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. I have a message plan this morning that is got a little substance in it and a little fun. And the title of my message is Two Possibilities. And so I'm just going to jump right in. I'm not going to do a lot of working up to the point because you already want to know what those two possibilities are, don't you? Okay, so here's the disclaimer. They're not two possibilities that I decided, but I actually found it in the beloved book, The Science of Mind by Dr. Ernest Holmes, who is one of my favorite metaphysicians. And he said this in the book, The Science of Mind. He said, bondage and freedom are but two possibilities of our use of spiritual law. Let us affirm freedom and not bondage. Let us affirm our freedom. So I want to talk this morning about those two possibilities and the way that life can, if we want to simplify it and apply spiritual principle in our everyday living in all those situations that, by the way, I loved the reading and your prayer, the words of your prayer. Did you see how in sync we were, that we even wore the same shoes? You can't see that online maybe, but yeah, Jane had the same shoes on as me. We didn't even plan it. It was a complete accident. We probably didn't even know we both owned those same shoes. So here's what we're going to look at today. We're looking at these two possibilities and the way that Holmes says there's freedom or there's bondage. And one of the things I want to talk about this morning is the way we inadvertently sometimes argue for our limitations without realizing that we're doing that, and that always before us are these much greater possibilities. So when we read things like, these are two possibilities, let us affirm the freedom, what I begin to see and what I felt as I was reading that and really just marinating in it, so to speak, is that what we're hearing here is that there's a way we can step into our freedom as we let life expand, or we don't. So there's something we can intellectually study in the way life unfolds. We can look at the universe, we can study nature, and we can see, like so many great thinkers did, that there's this instinct in life for expansion. Life has this instinct for growth and for thrivability and multiplicity. There is a multiplicity of weeds in my front yard right now. And I noticed at church, the landscapers came last week, but the weeds were getting pretty hardy here. We have a regular service, both at my home and here at the church. And still, in this season, with just a little moisture and then that gorgeous sun, life thrives, and it's a great message for all of us. So can we just let life expand on our behalf and it give us an expansive nature of what possibilities are before us when we look at ourselves as not bound by problems or limitations, but in a new way of thinking about all of that freedom. So I immediately thought, with that idea of letting life expand, I thought of that great passage in that same textbook. There's a passage where Holmes said, it makes me laugh when I think about it. L-E-T is a big word. I always misquote it. I always say L-E-T is a small word, but a big word. But what he actually said when I looked it up was that it's a big word and it's an important word. And so there's this emphasis on how much are we willing to open ourselves to that natural thrivability that seems to be at the heart of everything in the universe. So some of these expressions are the way that Holmes would speak to that idea of a higher power, what I call God. He says is this, can we allow reality? I love it when he does that. He uses that capital R, reality. Can we allow reality to manifest in the things that we are doing? Wait, in the things we are doing? Well, we're creating, we're co-creating, we're partners in the co-creation process in our own life in terms of how we decide to decide. Actually, a lot of times it's about the choices we make, or almost all the time. But can we allow reality? Can we allow that essence of divinity that is in all of life to manifest in our encounters, in our interactions with each other, in the conditions and the situations we live and move through? And I love that idea because it reminds me that everywhere present, that intelligence, that creator of all, the allness we spoke about last week, that it's everywhere present. And so our job is to be always expanding or choosing a more expansive way to express that freedom. So this shows up in the decisions we make. If you are moving through your life and you come to a crossroads or a fork in the road, you go around a bend and you don't see, but now the path is divided. Life does that to us all the time. Which way will you go? And so my goal is always to open myself to be guided to the road that will give me the most freedom. And then I can use that wisdom as I'm also making other choices in my life, because every moment is another choice. Right there, every encounter, we have a fresh, brand new choice right before us. So no matter what's going on in our personal lives, no matter what's going on in the essence of the world, we have a pandemic and we have all kinds of issues that we have as a human family, as we have moved through, and we continue to move through. We have encountered lots of opportunities for choice making, even as we have been sort of seemingly sequestered or physically sequestered and sheltered in place. It's good to be moving about a little more now. I'm noticing more and more people are feeling comfortable, more comfortable in what they're doing in the world, as isn't there some sense of freedom that's coming with those people who have had their vaccinations, right? I keep hearing again and again that there's a greater sense of freedom that's coming with that. And I believe that is a part of how we're going to be lifted in consciousness, the consciousness of humanity, or as Jung would say, the collective unconscious, that now is going to be less limited, and we're going to be stepping into more freedom, even if it's just in the way we are thinking in the privacy of our own personal lives. So how do we do that? We're all standing in every moment on this precipice of choice. I like thinking of it like that. How do I open myself to that guidance so that I can anticipate the highest and the best outcome for life and for my own life as well? And I think that a really good starting point, I couldn't help but be thinking about this while I was working with this material. It's right there on that wall. Sue Witter sitting right in front of it. It says it's the way we are big for God. It's the way we are aware of the blessings in our life, that part of life that's gives us so much to appreciate. And the way in which we open ourselves to the inspiration in life, that intelligence, that wisdom that's just in everything, and then to be grateful for all of that. So we are blessed, inspired, and grateful, and I like to say that's the way we are big for God. That's the way we stand in a space of openness, and we can anticipate a greater experience of freedom in the way that we live and move and have our being in this thing called life. I think it's easy to underestimate or to not appreciate how big this idea of an ultimate reality truly is. So when we use terms like all-powerful and ever-present, we say it and we sort of understand what that is, but we continue to then keep in our lives an idea of God that is just too small. It's infinite in possibility, and it's inexhaustible in the way that divine intelligence supplies everything in the universe to keep everything in working order in the heavens and on the earth. And there's a lot to imagine in a far greater way than we often think of. So it's not about thinking of big and small as in measurement, but it's in terms of infinite, trying to imagine what infinite means next to a more limited way of thinking or moving through life. So I like to think of it, there's a Jewish, somebody, I can't remember the name of the author now, it just popped in my head, but a Jewish author who wrote a book called God is a Verb. So I like that. God is a verb. So think about it as that activity of life that is always in motion and always becoming, in the same way that we are always becoming. We are never finished. You're never complete. There is no goal. There is no, we don't teach of a heaven as a reward if you've been good all through life. It's the constant becoming. And yes, you will shed your body and then there'll be something else. So we are, yay to shedding the body or yay to something else? All of it. Because it is really good news. If we could step away from our fear around death, which in our culture, we're not very good at that. And I do think it's appropriate for us to have sadness over the loss of life, but I do also think that we neglect the idea of that's bigger than what this is. So in this finite way, when we wear this body and this skin, we are creatures of skin and spirit, I like to say, we forget about those bigger things. We want to appreciate it, we want to look at our blessings, like how incredible is it that we have fingers and a thumb and we can grasp things. How incredible is it that our heart just beats in our body and keeps us living? How miraculous is it that our eyes blink and we don't give it any thought until something gets in our eye, and then we can't blink as comfortably, right? How all of these things that we just take for granted, the breath in itself, and there's this beautiful evidence of the ongoing nature of life, even in our moment-to-moment living. So our freedom of choice could be mind-boggling if we could wrap our mind around the idea of infinity, but the very fact that we are finite in a physical body, in a world where physical things are, we need physical things to accomplish, to live, then we just want to put everything in an order. It's why spiritual community and getting together on Sundays and having talks like this, or listening to them recorded later, or there's a plethora of ways to be spiritually uplifted in life, to recognize that finity and finite are two different things, and we think pretty finite. So the thinking mind, our beautiful minds that are so cleverly active a lot all the time, that we can redirect our thinking, and we can be thinking about things not just that are measurable or countable. You know, we like that. Well, not everybody likes numbers, but we like, Sue and I were having a great discussion this morning before the service started on Sudoku.
Makes me cry.
One of us likes it, one of us does not like it. She's still crying. I am going to make sure she has a proper lesson before the day's over. Oh, so there's something about us that's miraculous, and yet we're not just a body. We're more than that. We're far more than that, and life is not finite, even though in our habitual way that we move through our lives, we kind of forget that. We all have these default habits, and we don't even think about it. We don't even realize we're in choice. We have a default. Think about how your routine when you get up in the morning, and the path you take, and how many things you handle, and what happens before you make your tea or your coffee. And you can see that we have these habitual patterns that we don't give a lot of thought to. But when I stop and I look at my life and I begin to ask myself if those habits are still serving me, sometimes I'm surprised. Sometimes there's a real delight. Just recently, I found that I moved my coffee pot just a little bit, and now it's much easier to pour the coffee in. I've lived in that house with a coffee pot there for 6 years, right? And I don't know what happened. Just one day I went, maybe if I just scoot it this way, and now every day when I'm pouring coffee, because it's a change in an old habit that was a default pattern, and I see that there's joy in having new little discoveries in your ordinary life, so that you're not just inadvertently defaulting to all the old stuff. So here's the way we argue for our limitations. We all do it. I'm not picking on anybody. We all argue for our limitations without giving it much thought, and sometimes I think it's habitual behavior, and if we become aware of it, we can start freeing ourselves up to not be locked into those limiting old ideas. Anytime you hear yourself say maybe you're having a conversation with somebody or a group of people, and you hear people sharing ideas, your thought balloon could be, well, that would never work for me because... Wouldn't it be sweeter if we could be sitting with an open mind, like, well, that's an interesting perspective. I never thought of doing it that way, or I never thought of thinking about that from quite that angle. And there are all these opportunities for us to open up, but here are some other ones. These are ones that we all say or have heard and are common. Oh, I'd love to do that, but I live on a fixed income. Boy, I don't get around like I used to. It's getting a little harder to climb the stairs. And so we have these ideas that we then see that and recognize, and in wanting to honor our own life, we begin to limit what our choices are. Here's one I hear quite a bit. If you knew what my life was like, you'd understand why I have this behavior or that behavior. And so we have these limitations. Here's one of mine. I'll confess this. Oh, I really need to walk. I want to get out and walk today, but it's too cold. And then 15 minutes later or a season later, it's too hot to get out. Right? So we argue, and we can make a pretty good defense. We can build a pretty good defense for some of our limitations, but just recognize, and it's not wrong to have those. I think there's some peace of mind that comes in accepting that I shouldn't be able to climb stairs the way I did many years ago. Or maybe not at all anymore. I don't know. These stairs around here are pretty steep. We have a library upstairs. A lending library, if you didn't know that. And those pretty steep stairs, it's a good workout when I'm here in the building alone. Sometimes that's how I get my exercise. Oh, so let me take you back to Holmes where he said that LET is a big word, but it's an important word on that same page in that beautiful book. he says that he calls that divinity, that part of our life that is divine, that way we inherit that the divine perfection so that your heart knows how to beat and your lungs know how to breathe and all of that. He calls that the essence of our being. And he capitalizes it all. The essence of our being. You see how that broadens it out? If you're not just saying God, it makes it so much larger if you think about it as that it's that intelligence in me that is the God stuff. I would call it the God stuff. So I understand there are spiritual laws in place that sort of govern life in the same way that gravity keeps us safely on the earth. And the infinite intelligence of all the universe keeps everything in remarkable working order so that all things are in relationship to all other things. If you watch how the planets are predictable, the tides are predictable. You can go out, if you can find Orion, you can follow the belt and you can find Taurus, and if you go further out, you can find the Seven Sisters. You can see the Pleiades, and that's there. Those help me, what word am I trying to say? The constellations have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years that the sailors would use them to find their way through the dark night of the oceans. So there's that which is in order, and in the language of New Thought, we would say that intelligence is big and it's everywhere. In the language of Ernest Holmes, he says, this is great. He says, there's an intelligence that is already big with power. We don't make it. We don't energize it. We don't add 1 cubit of anything to it. You know what we do? And then he says, we let it manifest. In other words, you want to know what direction you're going, but you stay out of the way of the power because you are not the power. We all have equal access. There's something within us and we have an intuition for it if we get out of the way. And so all of those, all of the ways we have methods and spiritual ideas and teachings we have, depending on where you studied, there are 5 steps to affirmative prayer or 7 steps to affirmative prayer. And all of that has nothing to do with making something happen in your life, we're not making anything. We're convincing ourselves that those desires are already there. Everything, you couldn't desire it if it wasn't available for you to be able to fulfill whatever that yearning is. And so we're looking at, when we talk about affirmative prayer, we're talking about convincing ourselves to go back to that, the essence of our being, to stand in the power of that great reality that created the entire universe. And then it's about staying out of the way so that we can have a vaster array of what's possible. So there are infinite possibilities, and I don't even want infinite. I just want the good to be demonstrated in my life, and the good is demonstrated when we understand that spiritual freedom that we're talking about this morning. So, 2 possibilities, freedom or bondage. So we want to be conscious because the bondage comes from the way we imprison ourselves in the way that we're thinking, in the thoughts that are we say there's an atmosphere of thought that, we have a tendency to think in certain ways, and we have different personalities and all of that. And so you're going to follow that path, but you're not a victim to your thoughts. And that's what New Thought is all about. We can always generate a new thought, a different thought, or a higher thought. You get to choose. Now, I think this is my slant on all of this is that the simplest way to share this information with you is to look at it from this great spiritual perspective of there's love and there's fear. So we've been talking about freedom and bondage. Now let's talk about love and fear, because that's a great personal way to check in with yourself and see where you're coming from at any given point. Love, what do we know about love? Love expands things, right? Love grows things. Think about relationships. Think about the way some of us talk to our plants, right? There's life. I'm looking at you talk to life all the time. I know that about you. There's this way that our love stimulates this divine activity that is, it grows. So we know that love expands things, and we know that in fear we shrink, we hold back. And so the juxtaposition of love and fear is such a good one, because we should be able to relate to it. Now, when I first heard this presented, I was actually in a religious science church at the time, and it was a church. It was one of those A-frame churches with wooden pews in the interior of it. But when I first heard that, something about it resonated inside of me, and like through my whole body, I could feel the truth of it. I could relate to it. I could understand it, because when I check within, I can tell whether I got love going on or not. I got love going on. Now, if I check in to look for fear, I might not see it anywhere. But I certainly can see, I can stop, take a breath, and do that self-inquiry. So you got love going on right now or not? And you will know. You will just know, because you can feel love in a way that is different than fear, because it's freedom. It's freeing. It doesn't ever limit you. And so when I am standing in a place of love instead of a place of fear, everything looks different. It impacts my perception of life. But I want to say this. It's not a physical place. It's not even a posture. None of that really matters. What we're really talking about is, am I in this moment, when you're doing that check-in, am I viewing this encounter I'm having, whatever stirred some thinking for me, am I viewing it from an energetic of love, or is love absent right now? Because if love is missing, if you can't feel that love, then that is your compass that invites you to return to love, so that you can stand in a space of a different frequency, a vibrational movement in your being that will shift your perception, so that everything you look at now looks different. And not only that, but you feel different. So I may not know if it's love or fear, but I do know when love is absent or when love feels missing. There's a line from A Course in Miracles that says, I think of this one a lot. When you withhold your love from anyone, you are withholding love from yourself. So see, I can do that. I can use that now to guide me. So I don't have to say, is it love or fear, but am I withholding love? So come on, you all have people in your life, if, well, maybe not, I don't know. But people, we are in relationships so that we continue to grow our soul. Relationships help for the advancement of the soul. I'm completely convinced of that. And so I'm in relationship. I'm getting close to my 50th wedding anniversary. And I know it's so amazing. I can't imagine how I could, well, anyhow. And I'm thinking about that we were just having this talk before or after we prayed, and I remember I'm thinking that, like every day I probably have a moment where I go, did he mean to say that like that? Or, why did he leave his cup over there again? Just a little break in something, right? Just a little, the ordinary stuff. I'm not saying you shouldn't be that way. I'm saying that life is that. And that we stir that up based on whatever's going on for us in any given, there's a couple. In any given moment, right? This is just real stuff. And so a couple couple days ago, he did something that really annoyed me. The funny thing is, I can't even remember what it was. Probably a good thing. Hi, honey, I love you. And he did something that stirred me, and I was getting ready to go off to bed. And usually, you know, I stick my head out the door and go, I love you, good night. Or we do have a little, too much information? Okay. It's 50 years, I do whatever I want. And I realized I was mad at him, and I could not send him my little last-minute love thing. And so I was walking on my way to bed, and it dawned on me. See, there's a line that says, the truth will dawn upon you of itself, and it did. The truth dawned upon me of itself. And I went, oh, that is an example of how we withhold our love, right? I didn't plan to be agitated. It wasn't a choice I made. It was a reaction. And that's why we talk about this stuff. And so in that moment when I went, whenever you withhold love from anyone, you are withholding it from yourself. And I had this distinct experience of realizing it felt like an absence of love in my being, right? And here's the interesting part. Love wasn't missing. Love didn't go away. Love was still right where I am, and love is still right where you are, and it's still right where he is. But it is our awareness of the presence of love that either brings it to our attention or deprives us of it in terms of our own awareness. So when you withhold your love from anyone, notice first that it's missing in you so that you can return to love and reactivate that vibration and go in a direction that you desire to. Withholding love, think of it like this, it punishes yourself. I imprison myself in a loveless environment until I wake up and choose again. And that's the beauty of the whole thing. So I wanted to speak this morning I found this fabulous quote from somebody I really like. His name is Rabbi Rami Shapiro. And he's kind of a rowdy, rebellious, progressive Jew. And he's really clearly, when I read his columns or I have a couple of his books, I like the spiritual rebels. I think of myself as a spiritual rebel. And so I'm really drawn to Rob Bell and Rabbi Shapiro and all of those people that have a strong voice. Neil Donald Walsh tickles me too. So, there are these people that do spirituality in their own unique way, and you need to find those people that sing the music so you can hear it in your heart, feel it in your being. And he also has a very interfaith way that when you read his column and he does questions and answers, he's very universal in his approach to spirituality. So I found this quote, I don't remember where. It's from the book of Ecclesiastes, which is probably one of my favorite. I prefer that almost to Psalms and Proverbs. I love the everydayness of Ecclesiastes. But it said in the quote I read, it said Ecclesiastes dash Kohelet, the Kohelet, Kohelet. I had never heard that word before. So now I have an adventure. Now I'm going to research it. I'm going to sit down at my computer and find out what is a Kohelet from Ecclesiastes and what's that all about. And so here's the interesting thing. The word Ecclesiastes, I'm going to read you what I found in the definition of it. The title Ecclesiastes is commonly used in English as a Latin transliteration of the Greek translation of the Hebrew word Kohelet. Do you see what just happened here? That is 4 times removed. And when I read that, I thought, this is more for a class than it would be Sunday morning. It would be way too in-depth to go into it. But the point is, that's how the Bible, that's how scriptural text comes to us. And that's why a metaphysical approach to understanding the Bible or other sacred texts is really useful, because there are these great arguments over what language and what the word originally meant and what the idioms, how they used their examples and how life has changed now, and how the scribes would always, the people that would handwrite the verbiage that had been passed down orally for generations, even the scribes who were sworn to accuracy would throw in their bias of how they thought it should have been. And so none of it is as pure. That's why we don't talk about the Bible as being inerrant. I don't think there could be any such thing as an inerrant Bible or a translation. And that's why I also appreciate multiple translations of Scripture. So the word Ecclesiastes comes down, the closest thing we get to it is assembly. It has to do with gathering. And in this case, it's because Ecclesiastes is one of the what we call the wisdom books of the Bible. It is about gathering that beautiful knowledge, the wisdom, Sophia, the feminine. It's a feminine connotation. It's gathering that love of wisdom, and it's put together in this book of the Bible. Now, some of the Bible scholars suggest that the wisdom books are the most misunderstood and misinterpreted books of the Bible, which is interesting because I think we have fun with some of the stories about Jesus. But they say that what we've missed is that they're very practical. People are looking for the lessons in morality. That's what always happens when you look at Scripture. People tend to go, and I guess there's nothing wrong with that. If it helps us be better people, then, yay. But there's so much more, and I think the part that we've missed is that there's this theme in the book of Ecclesiastes, as well as the other wisdom books, Proverbs, Psalms, Song of Solomon, in that genre. The entire theme is about the futility of accumulating things that don't last. So in Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, is that beautiful passage that's familiar to us because it's been put in popular music. For everything, there is a season. Turn, turn, turn. Why do you let me sing? You know better. It is your job to make sure I don't sing. You need to jump in and do it. Or are you too young to know that song?
To everything, turn, turn, turn.
There is a season. Okay, we got it. I'm not going to quit singing apparently, so I will talk instead. But you get the point of what I'm saying. To everything there is a season. See, I would much rather at a memorial service, I would much rather read from Ecclesiastes than the 23rd Psalm. Because for me, it's about that things come and things go. Cherish it while you've got it. Appreciate things as they're here, because nothing lasts forever. And so we move into this idea that these books are written for us to understand that there's a way to learn to live in this continuous movement of life, the becomingness of life itself, and that we might choose to recognize that right where we are is the fullness of that infinite intelligence that has created all of life. Right where we are, within us, around us, absolutely permeating everything, that we are wise when we have trained ourselves to perceive the way that life is permeated with that divinity and to not take that for granted. Okay, so I'm going to read the quote now. So here's the quote, and it is translated from the spiritual rebel Rabbi Shapiro, and it comes from the book of Ecclesiastes Kohelet, and it says this: "You think that wealth will make you free. You think that stuff will bring you joy. You think that wealth and money will give you status or privilege, or at least the freedom to do the things you think you want to do. You think that wealth will make you free, but I say this: freedom is not bought, but it is seized. Freedom is not the last step, but freedom is the first step. And so in a teaching such as ours, in this idea of new thought, we often say that we see the end in the beginning. We need to see the freedom that we desire to experience in our life, and we need to begin to recognize that it's not the wealth, it's not the stuff, it's not the things, it is not about acquisition or acquiring anything. The freedom that we crave is about the embodiment of this spiritual truth of our being, that there is a place in us that is untouched, unviolated by anything going on in the world or in our lives. There is a place where we have perfect peace. There is a place where we have perfect harmony. The reason we desire order in our life is because that perfect order is a demonstration of how life is created. And so we want and crave joy and beauty and love and all of those divine qualities because it's inherent in who we are. And so freedom is not a result of our actions. It's not about that we pray so that we can do the right thing to get the right stuff. We've had it backwards. It's that we sit and we pray, we convince ourselves of this incredible, infinite truth of our being, that life is permeated with possibilities and that every fork in the road is not to a choice of this or that, but there's an entire rainbow of possibilities. And that rainbow of possibilities is before us all the time. So it's a choice. Freedom is a choice we make before we act. If we begin to see all of this in the picture that it makes, the story that it tells, we will begin to see that our limitations should not be our primary concern, but rather our primary concern and our profound focus on the way that we move through life is in understanding that the journey of life itself is always pointing us toward greater freedom. And that's what I wanted to say today. So get comfortable where you're seated. We are going to anchor these ideas in prayer. So take a breath. And we are just gently going to just let go of all the conversation, all the things that were just said, the quotes that were read, the information shared. We're just going to let it go as though they are trinkets of precious jewels falling around this room. And we open ourselves to be aware of that jewel that is ours. What word spoken or idea planted was just for you this morning. And grab onto that gem. And for a moment, we turn within to become aware of the presence of love. I feel the love of God within me, and I see that it is that activity of life. It is the essence of my being. And indeed, it is that reality that has created all of life. And therefore, there is no place where love is not. Love cannot be missing. It cannot be limited. It cannot be held back in any way, for it is always effervescently present. And so we clear the fog of the illusion of any absence of love. We clear our way through the overgrown thoughts of limitation. And we find that bright divine light of illumination to remind ourselves again that we are on the perfect path for our individual life. for the way in which we have been called to be individualized expressions of the divine. I feel the love of God in this room. And I know that it is a radiance that ripples out, not only through this building and through this city, but it moves freely around this globe and this planet. It stirs something within us that feels like a quickening as we are called to remember the truth of how miraculously we are created. And so there is that healing agent in each and every one of us that is now stimulated to reveal this gorgeous golden truth, that there is a perfection that is uninhibited and that cannot be held back, that cannot be imprisoned. It is the freedom of our life revealing this fabulous truth out into the planet so that there is wholeness and wellness, and that we can see it and recognize it, and that when we see it missing, we call it forward because we know it's still there. And this is the way we heal each other. This is the way we recognize that life is not broken, life is holy. And that this is a holy, sacred time in the history of the planet. And that we have been called to do the work that is ours to do. So we bring forward our love this day. We do our work to be conscious of the presence of love in every situation. And when we find that it has been limited in any way, we recognize that we have the power to return to love, to return our attention to love, to return our being into that essence of spirit itself. And so everything flows and moves in this divine order in a perfect way. And we are supplied with all of the things that we need. We are healed, we are holy, and we generously share our gifts. And I'm just grateful to know that. Grateful to know that we are blessed, we are inspired, and we have that essence of gratitude in us that is a reflection of the givingness of spirit itself. And so as we receive the grace of God this day, we allow ourselves to fill up, to be restored to our sanity and to our wholeness. I say thank you, God. Thank you, life. Thank you, infinite spirit. How grateful I am to know that this is the way spiritual law works. I let it be, and together we say, and so it is. Amen.
Grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. I am so grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. Everywhere I look and every face I see, His love reflected shining back to me. I just give thanks for all these simple things, the joy and peace that gratitude brings. That's why I'm grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. I am so grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have.
Thank you, Bradford's, as always, a delight. And thank you, Reverend Karen. That was just that opened my heart today in brand new ways. And I hope it did for you as well. So it is time for us to bless this community and bless the gifts that come to it. And so for those of you at home, if you have a gift that you're going to send or you have any other way that you give, please just for all of us hold that in our heart and use the joyful giving affirmations and say it with me. I live in a consciousness of good. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. And there are boxes, if you're here in the building, in the back of the sanctuary, and out by home space in the lobby. There's Easy Pay, there's auto bill pay, there's a million ways, even the U.S. mail. So thank you all for supporting this community. You know, we have been so richly blessed by you all, and I can't thank you enough for the fact that we have been a rich and robust community in spite of everything that has happened for so many throughout this past year. So I think that it's time for the fun song. All right.
Please stand for our last song.
Thank you for being here. Have a great, blessed week, and remember, pray often and love much.